The church was silent. No music, no groom. Just me, standing alone at the altar in my wedding dress. People whispered. Some pitied me. Others looked away. I was the nurse who had just been abandoned on her wedding day. That's when the doors opened. A man I had never seen before walked in. Calm, controlled, powerful. Not dressed like royalty. Just a stranger, watching me like he already knew my soul. He stopped in front of me, took my trembling hand, and whispered words no one was supposed to say. You don't belong to the man who left you. The room froze, because I didn't know it yet. But the stranger standing before me was a billionaire CEO, hiding something far bigger. And in that moment, my life split in two. Tell me which country you're watching from. Your messages always make my day. And if you're not subscribed yet, join us. There's so much more coming. Now let's continue. My hands shook as I stared at the empty space where David should have been. St. Catherine's Church in Boston had never felt so enormous, so hollow. The pews were filled with people who came to witness a wedding, not a public execution of my dignity. My wedding dress, the one I'd saved for months to afford, suddenly felt like a costume. Like I was playing a role in someone else's tragedy. I heard a door creak open at the back. Heavy footsteps echoed through the church. Everyone turned. A man walked down the aisle, and the air shifted. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hesitant. He moved like he owned every space he entered. Tall, dark suit that probably cost more than my car, and eyes that found mine immediately. I'd never seen him before. But something about his gaze made my breath catch. Not because he was handsome, though he was. Because he looked at me like he already knew everything I'd been through. Like he could see the pieces of me breaking in real time. He stopped right in front of me. Close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive. Clean.
He didn't ask permission, he just took my hand.
His touch was warm. Steady. Everything I wasn't in that moment. You don't belong to the man who left you, he said quietly. His voice was deep, controlled. The room went silent. I felt 300 pairs of eyes on us. My aunt gasped. Someone's phone camera flashed. But I couldn't look away from him. Who are you? I whispered. My voice cracked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to face the crowd. His expression didn't change, but suddenly everyone looked uncomfortable. Like they were the ones being judged, not me. Someone who recognizes what was just lost, he said. And it wasn't him. He looked back at me. Then he did something I never expected. He went down on one knee. Right there in front of everyone. My heart stopped. What are you doing? I hissed. People were pulling out phones now. This was going to be everywhere. Another humiliation. Another story about poor Lily Bennett, the nurse who couldn't even keep a man long enough to say I do. But he didn't seem to care. He looked up at me with those impossibly steady eyes. Marry me, he said. Not because you need saving. Because you deserve better than this. I stared at him. My brain couldn't process what was happening. This man, this stranger, was proposing to me. At my own failed wedding. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But something in his voice, in the way he held my hand, made me pause. You're insane, I said. Maybe, he replied. But you're still wearing a wedding dress, and there's still inefficient. The question is, are you brave enough to take what you actually deserve? I looked at the crowd. At my aunt who was clutching her pearls like they'd protect her from scandal. At David's groomsmen who were filming this disaster. At the empty spot where my fiancé was supposed to be. David, who promised me forever 3 months ago. David, who kissed me goodbye this morning and told me he couldn't wait. David, who apparently decided I wasn't worth showing up for. I looked back at the stranger. "What's your name?" I asked. "Alexander," he said. "Alexander Sinclair." "And I already know yours, Lily Bennett." The fact that he knew my name should have scared me. But instead, it felt like the first honest thing anyone had said to me all day. I took a breath. My hand was still in his. "Yes," I said. The word came out stronger than I felt. "Yes, I'll marry you." I heard someone scream. Pretty sure it was my aunt. Alexander stood, and before I could second-guess myself, he turned to the officiant. An older man who looked like he might pass out from shock. "You heard her," Alexander said. "Let's make it legal." The officiant stammered. But this isn't." Alexander pulled out his phone. Made one call. I watched him murmur something I couldn't hear. Then he hung up. "We'll do it at City Hall," he said to me. "This venue clearly isn't appropriate anymore." He looked around the church with an expression that made several people shrink in their seats. "Gather whatever you need. We're leaving." I should have argued. Should have demanded explanations. But I was running on adrenaline and spite and something that felt dangerously close to hope. So I picked up my dress and followed him out. Behind me I heard chaos, voices shouting, my aunt crying, someone asking where David was, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. Alexander's hand found the small of my back, guiding me through the parking lot. A black car was waiting. Sleek, expensive, with a driver who opened the door without being asked. "Where are we really going?" I asked as we drove. "City Hall," he said. "Then a hotel. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." I looked down at my wedding dress. At the tiny seed pearls I'd sewn on myself during night shifts at Massachusetts General Hospital. At the lace I'd chosen because David said it reminded him of his grandmother's tablecloth. At all the details that were supposed to mean something. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Alexander was quiet for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "Because 2 years ago someone saved my life, and I never forgot her face." I turned to stare at him. "What?" He met my eyes. "You don't remember me, but I remember you. Every single detail." My heart started racing. 2 years ago. I'd worked so many shifts, seen so many patients, but there was one night that stood out. A car accident. Multiple casualties. One patient who shouldn't have survived but did. His injuries were catastrophic. Everyone said he wouldn't make it. But I stayed. I fought. I refused to let him go. "The accident on Route 93, I whispered. The pileup in the rain." Alexander nodded slowly. "I was in one of those cars." "You were the nurse who wouldn't give up. Who kept talking to me even when I couldn't respond. Who told me I was going to survive because you weren't going to let me die." I remembered. God, I remembered. The way his hand had gripped mine. The way I'd stayed past my shift. Past exhaustion. Because something told me he needed someone to fight for him. I never saw him again after that night. Patients got transferred. Records got filed. I moved on to the next emergency, but I never forgot that case. Never forgot the feeling of bringing someone back from the edge. "That was you," I said. My voice was barely audible. "That was me," he confirmed. And I made myself a promise that night. If I survived, if I got a second chance, I was going to find the woman who gave it to me. So when I heard about your wedding, when I learned that David Carter was planning to leave you at the altar, I knew I had to do something. I froze. You knew. He didn't look away. I knew. But I also knew you needed to see it for yourself. Needed to understand what kind of man you were planning to marry. Anger flared in my chest. Hot and sharp. You could have told me. Warned me. Saved me the humiliation. I could have, he agreed. But would you have believed me? Or would you have married him anyway? Convinced yourself he was just nervous, just scared? Sometimes we need to see the truth with our own eyes before we can accept it. I hated that he was right. Hated that some part of me knew, even now, that if he'd told me beforehand, I would have made excuses for David, would have shown up at that church anyway. Would have waited, hoped, prayed for him to come back. The car pulled up to City Hall. Alexander got out first, then offered me his hand. I took it, my wedding dress catching on the door. Inside, everything moved fast. Papers, signatures, an officiant who looked tired and underpaid. Alexander produced identification, answered questions I couldn't focus on. And then, before I could fully process what was happening, we were married. Legally, officially married, to a man I met an hour ago. A man who saved me from the worst moment of my life. A man who claimed I saved him first. We ended up at a hotel in downtown Boston. The kind with marble floors and chandeliers and staff who didn't blink at a bride in a wedding dress checking in with a groom in a suit. Alexander got us a suite. 2 bedrooms, 1 shared living area. He was careful to specify that. Like he wanted me to know I had space, had choices, had an exit if I needed one. I stood in the middle of the suite, still in my dress, still processing. Alexander shrugged off his jacket, loosened his tie. For the first time since I met him, he looked almost human, almost vulnerable. I should explain, he said. I should explain a lot of things. I sank onto the couch. My dress pooled around me like a white sea. Start with David. Tell me how you knew. Alexander sat across from me. His expression hardened. I had him investigated. When I found out you were engaged, I needed to know if he was worthy of you. Turns out he wasn't. I waited. He continued. David Carter. Accountant. Moderate income. No criminal record. But 3 weeks ago, he received $50,000 from an anonymous source, deposited into an offshore account. The payment came with instructions. Leave Lily Bennett at the altar. Make it public. Make it hurt. I felt like I'd been punched. Someone paid him. Paid him to humiliate me. Who? I demanded. Alexander's jaw tightened. That's what I'm still trying to figure out. The money was routed through multiple accounts, shell corporations. Whoever wanted you hurt knew how to cover their tracks. But I promise you, Lily, I will find them. I wrapped my arms around myself. My wedding dress suddenly felt suffocating. I need to get out of this. I need to breathe. Alexander stood immediately. There's a bedroom through there. Take your time. Change. We'll talk more in the morning. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Walked to the bedroom he indicated. Closed the door. Leaned against it. And finally let myself break. I cried for the wedding that didn't happen. For the man I thought I knew. For the naive girl who believed love was enough. And then, when I had no tears left, I stripped off that damn dress, left it in a heap on the floor, found a hotel robe, wrapped myself in it, sat on the edge of the bed, stared at nothing. Tomorrow I'd figure out what came next. Tonight, I just needed to survive. Through the door, I heard Alexander moving around, making phone calls. His voice was low, controlled. Whoever he was talking to, he wasn't happy, but he also wasn't giving up. And somehow that mattered. Somehow, knowing that someone was fighting for me, even if I didn't fully understand why, made the pain a little more bearable. I woke up to sunlight streaming through hotel curtains and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The church, the abandonment, the stranger, the marriage. I sat up fast, my heart racing. This was real. This actually happened. I got married yesterday. To a man I didn't know. A man who knew me, apparently. A man who said I saved his life. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand. 73 missed calls. 112 text messages. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I walked out to the living area. Alexander was sitting at a table by the window, laptop open, phone to his ear. He looked like he hadn't slept. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie gone. But his eyes were alert, focused. When he saw me, he ended his call. "Good morning," he said. "There's coffee. And breakfast if you're hungry." I poured coffee with shaking hands. Black, no sugar. Nurse habits. We work long shifts. We need caffeine, not flavor. I sat across from him. "Now talk. Tell me everything." Alexander closed his laptop, gave me his full attention. "I'm the CEO, Sinclair Global. We specialize in medical technology, surgical equipment, diagnostic tools. We work with hospitals worldwide, including Massachusetts General." I nodded slowly. I'd heard of Sinclair Global. They donated equipment to our ERA last year. State-of-the-art monitors that had saved countless lives. "That was you. That was us," he confirmed. "After the accident, after you saved me, I became somewhat obsessed with improving emergency medical care. I wanted to make sure other people had the same chance I did, the chance you gave me. It was noble, impressive even, but it didn't explain everything. And the marriage, why go that far?" Alexander leaned back. His expression was complicated. "Because when I found out someone paid David to leave you, I realized you were in danger. Whoever orchestrated this doesn't just want you humiliated. They want you isolated, vulnerable. And I couldn't let that happen. Not to you." I gripped my coffee cup. "You think someone's coming after me?" "I think someone already has," he said quietly. "And until I know who and why, I'm not leaving you unprotected. Marriage gives me legal standing. Gives me the right to be involved, to investigate, to keep you safe. I should have been terrified, should have run. But instead, I felt something else. Something that felt almost like relief. Because for the first time in 24 hours, someone was telling me the truth. Someone was treating me like I could handle reality, even when it was ugly." "What do you know about David?" I asked. Alexander pulled up something on his laptop, turned it toward me. "David Carter, 29. Works at Henderson and Associates. Been there 5 years. Clean record, average performance. But here's what's interesting. 3 weeks ago, he received that $50,000. And 2 weeks ago, He started seeing someone else. I stared at the screen. At surveillance photos of David with a blonde woman, laughing, holding hands, looking happy. Looking like he was already moved on before he even left me. He was leaving anyway, I said. My voice was hollow. The money was just extra incentive. It looks that way. Alexander agreed. I'm sorry. I set down my coffee, stood up, walked to the window. Boston stretched out below us. The city I'd called home since medical school. The city where I'd built my life. Where I'd lost my parents in a car accident when I was 22. Where I'd worked my way through nursing school. Where I'd met David at a hospital fundraiser and thought I'd found my forever. All of it felt like a lie now. I want to confront him, I said. I want to hear him say it. Hear him admit what he did. Alexander was quiet for a moment. Then he stood. Walked over to me. I can arrange that. But Lily, are you sure? Are you ready for whatever he might say? I met his eyes. I have to be. Because right now, I don't have answers. I just have questions and conspiracy theories from a man I married 24 hours ago. No offense. None taken, he said with the ghost of a smile. Your skepticism is healthy. It means you're thinking clearly. He made a call, spoke briefly, hung up. David will meet you this afternoon. Neutral location, public place. I'll have security nearby, just in case. Thank you, I said. And then, because I needed to know, Alexander, who else was in that accident? Who else did I treat? His expression shifted, became guarded. There were 4 vehicles involved, multiple casualties. But the person in the car with me, the one you also worked on, that was my cousin, Prince Edward of Valdoria. I blinked. I'm sorry. Did you just say Prince? Alexander's jaw tightened. I did. And that's a conversation we need to have. But not today. Today you deal with David. Get your answers. Tomorrow I'll give you mine. I wanted to push, wanted to demand explanations. But he was right. I needed to handle one crisis at a time. And right now, David was the crisis I could actually face. So I nodded, got dressed. Prepared myself for a confrontation I never thought I'd have to have. Alexander watched me the entire time, not judging, not pushing. Just present, just there. And somehow that steadiness was exactly what I needed. We met David at a coffee shop in Cambridge. Neutral ground, like Alexander promised. Public enough that David couldn't make a scene. Private enough that we could actually talk. I saw him through the window before we went in. He looked the same. Brown hair, average height, the face I'd woken up next to for 2 years. The face I'd imagined growing old with. The face that apparently had no problem taking money to destroy me. My stomach twisted. Not with love, not anymore. With anger and confusion and something that felt like grief for the person I thought he was. Alexander squeezed my hand. His touch was warm, grounding. I can come with you, he said quietly. His eyes searched mine, looking for any sign that I wasn't ready for this. I shook my head. I need to do this alone. But stay close, just in case. He nodded. No arguments. No pushing. Just acceptance. He positioned himself at a table nearby, close enough to intervene if things went wrong.
Far enough to give me the space I needed to face this. To face him.
I took a breath, pushed open the door. The coffee shop smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Soft music played in the background. People typed on laptops, had quiet conversations, lived their normal lives, and I was about to confront the man who destroyed mine. I walked in. David saw me immediately. His face went pale. He stood up halfway, then sat back down. Like his body couldn't decide what the appropriate response was. "Lily," he started. His voice cracked. I held up my hand. The gesture was sharp, final. Don't say my name like you have the right. Don't pretend this is anything other than what it is. He swallowed hard. Looked around like he was hoping for an escape route. Like maybe someone would save him from this conversation. But no one was coming. No one was going to rescue him from the consequences of his choices. I sat down across from him. The chair scraped against the floor. Too loud, too harsh. I forced myself to look at him. Really look at him. At the man I'd planned a future with. The man I'd introduced to colleagues. The man I'd defended when my friends said he seemed distant, seemed distracted. "Who paid you?" I asked. My voice was calm, clinical. The same voice I used in the A when someone's life was on the line and emotions would only make things worse. David's eyes widened. He tried to look confused, but I saw the flash of guilt. "I don't know what you're talking about." $50,000, I continued. Each word deliberate, measured, deposited 3 weeks ago. Payment to leave me at the altar. To humiliate me in front of everyone I know. My parents, friends, my colleagues, my entire life. So I'll ask again, David. Who paid you? His face crumbled. I saw the exact moment he realized there was no point in lying. That whatever story he prepared, whatever excuse he'd constructed, none of it mattered. I knew, and knowing meant there was nowhere left to hide. Hide? It came through a lawyer, he said quietly. His hands were shaking. He wrapped them around his coffee cup like it could anchor him. Anonymous client. They didn't give a name. Just instructions. Just a bank transfer and a document telling me when and how to leave you. "And you took it," I said. The words tasted bitter. "You took money to destroy me. You looked at that offer and thought, yes, this is acceptable. This is something I can live with." He looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. "I was going to end things anyway," he said. Each word a confession. I didn't know how. Things between us had been off for months. You were always at the hospital. I was working late. We barely saw each other. And then this offer came, and it seemed like a sign. Like the universe was giving me permission to be a coward instead of having the difficult conversation we should have had. I felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Just cold clarity. "Who is she?" "The blonde woman." He flinched. "Her name's Emma. We met at work. Started as friends, but then..." He trailed off. "Then you fell in love?" I finished. And instead of being honest with me, instead of giving me the respect of a real conversation, you waited for someone to pay you to leave. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry, Lily. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am." "You're right," I said. "It doesn't mean anything. But here's what I need you to understand. You didn't just break my heart. You made me doubt myself. Made me feel like I wasn't enough. And that, David, that's unforgivable." I stood up. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. And if whoever paid you contacts you again, if they ask about me or try to use you, you come to me. You owe me that much." He nodded miserably. I walked away. Didn't look back. Alexander fell into step beside me. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I will be." He didn't argue, didn't try to fix it, just walked with me back to the car. And when we were inside, when the doors were closed and the world was shut out, he spoke. "I'm proud of you." Those words, simple as they were, broke something in me. I turned to him. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I let someone see me completely shattered. He didn't pull me into his arms, didn't offer empty comfort. He just sat there, present and steady, until I could breathe again. That night, Alexander asked me something unexpected. "Come to London with me. I have business there, and I think you could use a change of scenery. Away from Boston, away from the memories." I should have said no. Should have gone back to my apartment, back to my life, back to normal. But nothing about my life was normal anymore. And the thought of staying in Boston, of running into people who witnessed my humiliation, of facing the pity and the gossip, made my skin crawl. "Okay," I said. "How long?" "A few weeks," he replied. "Maybe longer. Depends on what we find out." I packed a bag, called my supervisor at the hospital, requested an emergency leave. She was surprisingly understanding. Told me to take all the time I needed. Told me the hospital would be there when I was ready. I wondered if Alexander had something to do with that, but I didn't ask. Some questions were better left unanswered. We flew out the next morning. Private plane. Because of course Alexander had a private plane. I should have been uncomfortable, should have felt out of place, but instead, I felt free. Like I was leaving behind a version of myself that no longer fit. The girl who believed in fairy tales. The girl who thought love was simple. The girl who got left at the altar. That girl was gone. And I wasn't sure who I was becoming, but at least I was moving forward. London was rain and gray skies and architecture that took my breath away. Alexander's penthouse was in Mayfair. All glass and steel and views of Hyde Park. It was beautiful. Sterile. Like a museum exhibit instead of a home. "You don't spend much time here," I observed. He was unpacking files. Already working. "I don't spend much time anywhere," he admitted. "My work takes me all over the world. This is just one of several bases." "Must be lonely," I said without thinking. He looked up, met my eyes. "It is, but I've gotten used to it." I wanted to say something. Wanted to bridge the gap between us, but I didn't know how. Didn't know what we were to each other. Married, yes, but not really. Not in any way that mattered. So I changed the subject. "What's the plan?" "What are we doing here?" Alexander pulled out a folder. "This is everything I've been able to gather on the payment to David. It's not much, but it's a start. The money originated from a firm in London. That's why we're here. To dig deeper. To find out who wanted you hurt and why." I sat down next to him. Studied the documents. Legal jargon and account numbers and names I didn't recognize. It felt overwhelming, but also focusing. A problem to solve instead of pain to process. We worked through the night. Alexander made calls. I researched. We ordered takeout and drank coffee and slowly, piece by piece, started building a picture. And somewhere in those hours, something shifted. We stopped being strangers bound by a reckless decision. We started becoming partners. Two people fighting the same fight. The next morning, Alexander had meetings. I explored London. Walked through Hyde Park, visited museums, tried to remember what it felt like to just exist. To not be defined by what happened to me. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 2 words. Leave him. I stared at the screen. My hands went cold. Someone was watching. Someone knew I was here. Someone wanted me scared. I screenshot the message, sent it to Alexander. Within minutes, he called. Where are you? I told him. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. His voice was tight with something that sounded like fear. He arrived within 15 minutes. Pulled me into the car. Are you okay? Did anyone approach you? I shook my head. Just the message. He swore. Not quite under his breath. This is escalating. Whoever is behind this, they're not backing down. They're getting desperate. Why? I asked. Why would anyone care this much about me? What am I to them? Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. You're not just a nurse, Lily. You're the daughter of Dr. James Bennett, military doctor. The man who saved the king of Valdoria's life 25 years ago. My world tilted. What? My father, I stammered. He died when I was 22. Car accident. I know, Alexander said gently. But before that, he was a decorated military surgeon. And one of his patients was King Henrik of Valdoria. My uncle. Your father saved his life during a diplomatic crisis. Prevented an international incident. And in doing so, he made powerful enemies. I couldn't breathe. My father never talked about his military service. Never mentioned kings or countries or political intrigue. He was just my dad. Quiet, kind, dedicated. He taught me how to tie sutures, how to stay calm in emergencies, how to fight for every patient like they were family. He never said any of this. There was a lot he couldn't say, Alexander replied. National security. Royal protocol. But the point is, Lily, you're not random. You saving Edward wasn't coincidence. It was destiny. You have your father's skills, his compassion, his stubborn refusal to let people die, and that makes you important. That makes you a threat to people who prefer the royal family weak and vulnerable. I felt dizzy. This was too much, too big. I'm just a nurse. I just wanted to help people. I know, he said. And that's exactly why you're dangerous to them. Because you don't want anything. You can't be bought or threatened or controlled. You just do what's right. And people like that are terrifying to people in power. The car stopped. We were back at the penthouse. Alexander helped me inside. Sat me down. Brought me water. I need to tell you everything now, he said. No more secrets. No more waiting. I looked at him. At this man who saved me from humiliation. Who married me to protect me. Who was slowly revealing a world I never knew existed. Tell me, I said. Tell me everything. And he did. He told me about Valdoria. A small progressive European country nestled between Switzerland and Austria. A constitutional monarchy known for medical innovation and humanitarian work. He told me about his family. His uncle, the king. His aunt, the queen. His cousin Edward, the crown prince. And himself. Not just a CEO, but Crown Prince Alexander of Valdoria, second in line to the throne. Hidden in plain sight. Living a double life. CEO by day, royal by blood. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, he said. But I needed you to trust me first. Needed you to see me as just a man before you saw me as a title. I should have been angry. Should have felt betrayed. But instead, I understood. Because if he'd told me that first day in that church, I never would have believed him. Never would have said yes. I would have thought he was insane. And maybe we both were. But at least we were insane together. One question, I said, yes. Why did you really marry me? Was it just protection? Was it just obligation? Or was it something else? Alexander looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time since I met him, I saw past the control, past the careful walls, past the prince and the CEO. I saw the man who almost died. The man who woke up to a nurse telling him he was going to survive. The man who never forgot. When I woke up from that accident, he said quietly, when I opened my eyes and saw you, I thought I was dreaming. You were covered in blood. Exhausted. You'd been on shift for 18 hours, but you smiled at me. And you said, welcome back. We weren't done with you yet. I felt tears prick my eyes. I remember. You squeezed my hand so hard I thought you'd break my fingers. You were terrified, he continued. I could see it. But you didn't let me see it. You stayed calm, stayed strong, talked me through every procedure. And in those hours I fell in love with your strength, your compassion, your absolute refusal to give up. So when I found out you were about to marry someone who didn't deserve you, someone who was being paid to hurt you, I couldn't stay away. I had to do something, even if it was reckless. Even if it was insane. This wasn't the answer I expected. Wasn't the clinical explanation about protection or obligation. This was raw, honest, terrifying in its vulnerability. I don't know what to say, I whispered. You don't have to say anything, he replied. I just needed you to know. Needed you to understand that this isn't just about keeping you safe. It's about finally being honest about what I felt since the moment you saved my life. We sat in silence, the weight of his words hanging between us. And for the first time since David left me at that altar, I felt something other than pain. I felt possibility. Felt like maybe, just maybe, this disaster was leading somewhere I never expected. Somewhere better. But before I could say anything, before I could figure out what I was feeling, his phone rang. He answered. His expression hardened. When? Where? I'm on my way. He hung up, looked at me. Edward's in trouble. There's been an incident at the palace. I need to go to Valdoria. Tonight. I stood. I'm coming with you, Lily, he started. I'm coming with you, I repeated. You just told me I'm part of this. That my father's history ties me to your family. So I'm not staying behind. I'm not hiding. I'm facing this head on. He studied me, then nodded. Pack light. We leave in an hour. Valdoria was everything and nothing like I expected. Small, yes, but powerful in its subtlety. Ancient castles mixed with modern infrastructure. A country that honored its past while embracing its future. We flew in under cover of darkness. Landed at a private airstrip. Guards met us immediately. They bowed to Alexander, called him Your Highness, treated him with a deference that was both natural and absolute. This was his world. And I was an outsider stepping into it. The palace was stunning. All stone and history and secrets. We were ushered through back corridors. Servants bowed as we passed. Whispers followed us. I heard my name. Heard speculation. Heard shock that Crown Prince Alexander brought an American commoner with him. Let them talk, Alexander said quietly. He kept his hand on my back, a small touch that grounded me. That reminded me I wasn't alone. We reached a conference room. Inside, Edward was waiting. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. But when he saw me, his face lit up. Lily Bennett, he said. The nurse who saved my life. I wasn't sure if you'd remember me. I remember everyone I pulled back from the edge, I said. It's part of the job. He smiled, then walked over, took my hands. I owe you everything. My life, my future. And I promise you we will find who is behind this. We will protect you. I wanted to ask what happened. What incident brought us here? But before I could, the door opened. A woman entered. Tall, regal, with silver hair and eyes like ice. She looked at me with undisguised disdain, then turned to Alexander. This is the American, she said. The nurse. The woman you married without permission, without consultation. I felt like I'd been slapped, but I held my ground. Alexander's jaw tightened. Mother, this is Lily, my wife, and you will treat her with respect. The Queen, of course. Because apparently my life wasn't complicated enough. She circled me like I was something to be examined, evaluated, found lacking. You've complicated things, she said to me. Made our lives infinitely harder. Edward's kidnapping was meant to be contained. But your involvement, your presence, has drawn unwanted attention. Wait, I said. Kidnapping. What? Edward looked uncomfortable. It was brief, a few hours. They wanted information about our medical technology, about Sinclair Global's contracts. They thought they could use me as leverage. But they failed, the Queen said coldly. Because my son is strong. Because we handled it internally. And now you've arrived, forcing us to acknowledge this marriage. Forcing us to explain how a crown prince ended up wed to a commoner without royal approval. I felt anger rise, hot and sharp. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be abandoned, to be targeted, to be dragged into your world. But I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. So you can either accept that or fight me. But know that if you fight me, you're fighting Alexander too. The Queen's eyes narrowed. You dare speak to me that way. I dare speak to you like a human being. I shot back. Because that's what I am. Not a title. Not a pawn. Just someone trying to survive while your family's enemies use me as a weapon. Respect goes both ways. Your Majesty. The room went silent. Edward looked like he was trying not to laugh. Alexander's hand tightened on my back. Proud but also worried. The Queen stared at me for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. You have fire, she said. Perhaps that's what my son needs. Someone who won't be intimidated by our world. But understand this, Miss Bennett. If you stay, if you truly become part of this family, you will be held to impossible standards. You will be scrutinized, criticized, attacked, and there will be no escape. I met her eyes. I've already been held to impossible standards my whole life. I'm a woman in medicine. A nurse who fought through medical school while working 3 jobs after my parents died. I've been scrutinized and criticized since I was 22 years old. So your world might be new, but the pressure isn't. She considered this, then nodded.
Very well, we'll speak more later.
For now, rest. Tomorrow we have much to discuss. She swept out. Edward followed. Alexander and I were left alone. You handled her well, he said. Better than I expected. I turned to him.
What's really going on? What aren't you telling me?
He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. The kidnapping wasn't random.
It was orchestrated by people who want to destabilize Valdoria, who want to prove that our royal family is weak, that our focus on humanitarian work makes us targets. And they're right. We are targets, but we refuse to change who we are. And where do I fit in this? I asked.
You're proof that we have connections, he said. Your father saved the king. You saved Edward.
That lineage, that history, it matters.
It shows that our family has allies, has people who will fight for us. But it also makes you a target. Because if they can turn you against us, if they can hurt you to hurt me, they win.
I absorbed this. The enormity of it. What do they want?
What's the end game? Alexander's expression darkened. They want the throne. They want to prove that a monarchy focused on medicine and charity and peace is a failed experiment. That Valdoria should return to old ways. Isolation, aggression, and they're willing to destroy anyone in their path to make that point. I thought about my father, about the quiet man who taught me to fight for every life, about the secrets he kept, the enemies he apparently made. And I thought about myself, about the nurse who just wanted to help people, who ended up married to a prince, who was apparently standing in the middle of a political war she never asked to join. I'm not running, I said. I'm not hiding. Whatever comes next, I'm facing it. Alexander pulled me close, pressed his forehead to mine.
I know. That's why I married you.
Not just to protect you,
but because I knew you'd stand and fight.
And that's exactly what we need. We stood there for a moment. Two people from different worlds, bound by circumstance, by history, by something that felt dangerously close to love. Then we separated,
prepared for whatever tomorrow would bring.
Because in Valdoria, tomorrow always brought something, and we needed to be ready. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through ancient windows and the sound of bells. Palace life had a rhythm, a formality. Servants brought breakfast, laid out clothes, spoke in hushed tones.
I felt like I was in a period drama. Except this was real, and I was living it. Alexander was already awake,
already dressed. He looked different here, more formal, more distant, like he was wearing the mask of his title. We have meetings today, he said, with the king, with advisors. You'll be expected to attend. I'm a nurse, not a politician. You're my wife, he corrected gently.
That makes you part of this, whether you want to be or not.
I got dressed.
Something simple. Professional. I refused to pretend to be something I wasn't. Refused to play princess when I was still figuring out how to be a person.
After everything that happened, the meetings were brutal. Hours of discussions about security,
about threats, about political maneuvering.
The king sat at the head of the table, an older man with kind eyes and a tired expression. He looked at me with something like recognition. You have your father's face, he said during a break. His determination. James Bennett was one of the finest men I ever knew. He died saving people, I said quietly, in a car accident. He was rushing to a hospital to help with a mass casualty event. The king nodded. That sounds like him. Always putting others first.
I understand you share that trait.
I don't know, I admitted. I just know I can't walk away when someone needs help. Even when it's dangerous. Even when it costs me. That's the Bennett legacy, he said. And it's exactly what Valdoria needs right now.
Someone who can't be bought. Can't be scared. Someone who simply does what's right. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to feel like I belonged in this world. But I didn't. I felt like an imposter. Like at any moment someone would realize I didn't fit and send me home.
After the meetings, I wandered the palace.
The walls felt like they were closing in. Centuries of history pressing down on me. Portraits of kings and queens stared from gilded frames, judging me, finding me wanting. I found myself in a garden.
Ancient roses bloomed despite the season. Their petals were perfect, untouched by the chaos happening inside palace walls.
Stone benches worn smooth by generations. Quiet. Peace. I sat.
Let myself breathe. Let myself feel the weight of everything that had happened.
My phone buzzed. Messages from my supervisor at Massachusetts General, from colleagues asking if I was okay.
From friends who'd seen the viral videos of my failed wedding.
I turned it off. Couldn't deal with the outside world.
Not yet.
Footsteps approached on the gravel path. Measured. Deliberate. I looked up. The Queen. She wore a simple dress today.
No crown, no formal regalia. Just a woman walking through her garden.
But even without the trappings of royalty, she commanded space, commanded attention.
She sat beside me without asking permission. Her posture perfect even in casual moments. We sat in silence for several minutes. I could feel her studying me, evaluating, trying to decide if I was worth the risk I represented.
Then she spoke. Her voice was softer than in the conference room.
More human. My son loves you. I blinked. The words didn't compute. Excuse me. Alexander, she said, turning to look at me fully.
He loves you. He has since the day you saved him from that accident.
I've watched him carry that feeling for 2 years.
Watched him search for you through databases and hospital records.
Watched him become obsessed with protecting you from afar. Building his company around medical technology because it was the closest he could get to your world. And when you needed saving, when that pathetic man abandoned you, my son didn't hesitate. That's not protection, Miss Bennett.
That's not obligation or duty. That's love. Pure, reckless, all-consuming love.
I felt my throat tighten. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, she replied.
I'm not asking for confessions or romantic declarations. I'm simply stating a fact. My son loves you.
And I've come to realize after watching you these past days, after seeing how you handle pressure in politics and impossible situations, that perhaps that's enough. Perhaps love is the one thing that can survive this world.
I looked at her.
Really looked at her. At the Queen who minutes ago seemed to despise my very existence.
Why are you telling me this? What changed?
Because I'm about to make you an offer, she said carefully. And I want you to understand what's truly at stake. What you'll be giving up if you accept. She pulled out an envelope. Cream-colored. Expensive paper. Inside were documents.
Architectural plans. Budgets. Proposals for medical clinics.
State-of-the-art facilities with cutting-edge equipment. Locations marked across America. Boston. New York. Los Angeles. Chicago.
cities where people needed care, where my skills could save thousands. And there on every board of directors my name, Dr. Lily Bennett, director, founder, the woman who built something extraordinary. You could save thousands of lives, she said. Her voice was neutral. Giving nothing away. You could build the legacy your father started. Create medical centers that provide care regardless of ability to pay. Train the next generation of nurses and doctors. Make a real, measurable difference in the world. All I ask in return is one small thing. She paused, met my eyes. That you annul the marriage. Walk away from Alexander. Let him marry someone appropriate. Someone who understands this world from birth. Someone who won't be destroyed by the scrutiny and the pressure. Someone who can handle being queen without breaking. I stared at the papers. At everything I'd ever dreamed of since I was a little girl watching my father work. The ability to help people on a massive scale. To make a real difference. To honor my father's memory and build something that would outlast me. Clinics that would serve communities for generations. Technology that would save lives. Training programs that would create thousands of healthcare workers. All I had to do was leave. Walk away from Alexander. From Valdoria. From this complicated, dangerous, beautiful mess. Return to Boston. Return to my life. Return to being just Lily. The nurse. Not the princess. Not the future queen. Just me. I looked at the queen. At her careful expression. At the way she held herself. This is a test, I said slowly. Understanding dawning. You're testing me. To see if I can be bought. To see if I'll choose dreams over people. To see if I'm like David, someone who can be paid to walk away. She didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Just watched me with those ice blue eyes. Edward's kidnapping taught us something important, she said finally. We need people around us who can't be corrupted, who choose principles over prizes, who do what's right, even when it costs them everything they want. And I need to know if you're that person, Miss Bennett. I need to know if you're someone who will stand beside my son when the world tries to tear you apart. Or if you're just another person who can be bought. Just another person with a price. Like that accountant who left you at the altar. Like the advisors who sell state secrets. Like everyone who has ever betrayed this family for money or power or comfort. I stood, handed back the envelope. I appreciate the offer. But I'm not leaving. Not because I'm a martyr. Not because I'm noble. But because I've spent my entire life running from pain. Running from my parents' deaths. Running from loneliness. Running from anything that felt too hard. And it got me nowhere. It got me to an altar where I stood alone while everyone I knew watched me break. So no, I'm not running anymore. I'm staying, not for clinics, not for money. But because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing to fight for something that matters. The queen studied me. Then she nodded. Good answer. She stood. Brushed off her dress. Alexander will need you in the coming days. The king is dying. Not immediately, but soon, within the year. And when he dies, Alexander becomes king, which means you become queen, unless you choose to walk away. I felt the world tilt. Queen, me, a nurse from Boston, a woman who got left at the altar. A person who just wanted to save lives. It's not a title I want, I said honestly. But it's a title you'll accept, she replied. Because Alexander will need you. Because this country will need you. Because sometimes we don't get to choose our path. We only get to choose how we walk it. She left me there, in the garden, with roses and silence and the weight of a future I never imagined. I sat back down, put my head in my hands, and for the first time in days I let myself cry, not from pain but from overwhelm, from the sheer impossibility of everything that was happening. I felt someone sit beside me. Alexander, he didn't speak, just pulled me against his chest. Let me cry. Let me break. And when I finally stopped, when I finally looked up at him, he wiped my tears. My mother told me about the offer, he said quietly. I'm sorry. She shouldn't have. I shook my head. She should have. Because I needed to know what I was choosing, needed to face that temptation, and I needed to realize that it wasn't even a choice. Not really. Because walking away from you feels like walking away from myself, and I'm done doing that. He kissed my forehead. Soft, gentle. We sat together as the sun set, as bells rang in the distance, as the palace prepared for dinner. And in that moment I realized something important. I wasn't running anymore. I was home, even if home was a palace in a country I barely knew. Even if home was complicated and dangerous and impossible, it was still home. Because home wasn't a place, it was a person. And that person was sitting beside me, holding me, choosing me, the way I was choosing him. The next few days passed in a blur. More meetings, more security briefings, more lessons about protocol and tradition. I learned to curtsy, learned to address royalty, learned to navigate a world where every word mattered. Every gesture was analyzed. But I also learned something else. I learned that beneath the formality, beneath the titles, the royal family was just people. Flawed, scared, trying to do their best in an impossible situation. The king called me to his chambers one evening. He looked frailer, sicker, but his eyes were still sharp. Sit, he said. I sat. My father saved your life, I started. He held up a hand. He did. But that's not why I called you here. I called you because I'm dying, and I need to know that my son will be protected, will be loved. Will have someone fighting for him the way your father fought for me. I will, I promised. I don't know how. I don't know if I'm strong enough, but I'll try. That's all I ask, he said. The Bennett family has always been fighters, always been protectors, and I believe you inherited that. I believe you're exactly what Alexander needs, what Valdoria needs. I wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. What if I'm not? What if I fail? Then you fail, he said simply. But you fail fighting. And that's more than most people can say. He gave me a small box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant. A single stone surrounded by smaller diamonds. This was your father's gift to my family, he said. After he saved my life, he refused payment, refused titles. But he accepted this ring. Said it would remind him that every life matters, that every choice we make ripples out. And now I'm giving it to you. To remind you of the same thing, I slipped it on. It fit perfectly. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled, tired but genuine. Take care of my son. And take care of yourself. This world will try to break you. Don't let it. I left his chambers. Found Alexander waiting in the hallway. He saw the ring, recognized it immediately. He gave you the Bennett ring,
I nodded. He told me about my father. About everything. Alexander pulled me close. Your father was a hero. And so are you. You just don't see it yet. Maybe I don't, I said. But I'm starting to. That night we talked for hours. About everything, about my childhood, about his. About the weight of expectations. About fear and hope and everything in between. And somewhere in those hours, something shifted. We stopped being two people thrown together by circumstance. We started being partners, equals, two people building something real from the ruins of what should have been. The coronation happened 3 months later. The king had held on, had fought. But eventually, his body gave out. He died peacefully, surrounded by family, honored as a good man and a better king. The funeral was massive. World leaders attended. And through it all, I stood beside Alexander, steady, present, the nurse who became a princess who was about to become a queen. The coronation itself was surreal. Ancient traditions mixed with modern sensibility. Alexander took his vows, became king, and then he turned to me, extended his hand. I took it, walked forward. Let them place a crown on my head. Let them call me queen. Me, Lily Bennett, orphan, nurse, woman who got left at the altar. I was now queen of Valdoria. It should have felt wrong. Should have felt like a costume. But instead it felt like destiny. Like every moment of my life had led here, to this place, to this person, to this impossible, beautiful future. After the ceremony, we stood on the balcony, waved to crowds, and Alexander leaned close, whispered in my ear, "Thank you for staying. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for choosing this, choosing me." I smiled, squeezed his hand. "I didn't choose this," I whispered back. "I chose you, and everything else just came with it." We stood together, king and queen, partners, two people who found each other in the wreckage, who built something extraordinary from disaster. And as the crowds cheered, as the bells rang, as history unfolded around us, I realized something important. Being abandoned at that altar was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to face the truth, forced me to see what I was running from, forced me to choose something real over something comfortable. And what I chose was love, not perfect love. Not easy love, but real love. Complicated and messy and absolutely worth fighting for. The kind of love that saves you. Not from danger, but from yourself. Alexander and I didn't abdicate. Didn't run away from responsibility. Instead, we built something new. A monarchy that valued medicine. That valued compassion. That valued the fight to save every life. I opened clinics, not because the Queen offered them, but because I built them myself, with Alexander's support, with the royal family's backing. We created a legacy, the kind my father would have been proud of, the kind that mattered. And through it all, through the challenges and the threats, and the impossible days, we stood together. King and queen, partners, two people who refused to let the world break them. 5 years passed like a breath. We had 2 children, a boy and a girl. They had Alexander's eyes and my stubborn determination. They were perfect, exhausting, the light of our lives. I still worked. Still practiced nursing, still refused to let a title define me.
But I also learned to navigate the royal world. Learned to use my position for good. Learn that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silenced. David reached out once. Years after everything. Apologized. Said he was ashamed. Said he was happy I found real love. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because he was part of a past that no longer defined me. Part of a story that ended the moment Alexander walked through those church doors. The queen became an ally. Not warm. Never warm, but respectful. She saw what I brought to the family. Saw how I supported Alexander. How I raised our children. How I honored the Bennett legacy. And slowly, grudgingly, she accepted me. Edward married. Had children, became a good man. And every year, on the anniversary of the accident, he sent me flowers. With a note that simply said, "Thank you for not giving up." I never did give up. Not on him, not on Alexander, not on myself. That was the Bennett way. Fight until there's nothing left to fight for, and then fight anyway. Because sometimes the best things in life come from the moments we refuse to surrender. I stood on the palace balcony one evening, watching the sunset, watching my children play, watching Alexander work in his study. And I thought about that day, the church, the silence, the humiliation, the stranger who became my everything. Being abandoned wasn't the end. I whispered to myself. It was freedom for something better. Sometimes the person you're running from is exactly where you need to fall. Alexander joined me, wrapped his arms around me, whispered, "What are you thinking about?" I leaned back against him. About how far we've come. About how a disaster became destiny. About how the worst day of my life led to the best years. He kissed my hair. "I knew you were worth saving." I smiled. We saved each other. And we stood there. King and queen. Husband and wife. Partners. As the sun set over Valdoria. As our children laughed. As history continued forward. We stood together. Not because we had to, but because we chose to. Every single day. And that choice, that constant decision to fight for each other, to build something extraordinary from the ruins, that was our real love story. Not the drama, not the titles, not the palace. Just two people who refused to let pain define them. Who refused to let the world decide their future. Who stood together and said, "We're writing our own ending." And we did. Together. Always together. Sometimes the moments that break us are actually breaking us open. Opening us to possibilities we never imagined. Opening us to people we never expected. Opening us to a future we never dared to dream. I was abandoned at that altar. Left standing alone in front of everyone I knew. But that abandonment wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. It was the universe removing someone who didn't deserve me to make space for someone who did. It was pain with a purpose. Humiliation with a hidden gift. The worst moment of my life became the doorway to the best life I could have lived. And if I could go back, if I could change that day, make David show up, make the wedding happen, I wouldn't, not for anything, because that disaster led me here, to Alexander, to Valdoria, to children who will grow up knowing that strength comes from facing pain, not avoiding it, to a life that matters, to love that transforms. Being abandoned at the altar taught me something crucial. Sometimes we're not losing what we wanted. We're losing what was holding us back from what we actually needed. Sometimes the person walking away is making room for the person walking toward us. Sometimes devastation is redirection. And sometimes the stranger who saves you is the one you've been waiting for your whole life. You just didn't know it yet. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please leave a like and subscribe to Dramora Stories. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more powerful love stories like this one. Drop a comment telling me what you thought. Did Lily make the right choice? Would you have accepted the Queen's offer? I read every single comment and I love hearing your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this, check out our other stories. There's so much more coming, more romance, more drama, more moments that will make you believe in second chances. Until next time, remember, being abandoned isn't the end. It's freedom for something better. Sometimes the person you're running from is exactly where you need to fall.